Hi, everybody. It's Ron again, and welcome to another installment of today's headlines, where we look to see if we can add some comment, some context, some commentary to what's in the news today. And these are the alarming headlines from Drudge, but Drudge does have influence in newsrooms in presenting these, so this is why I've chosen it. So first we have the big thing. This was sort of a holdover from yesterday. This was Musk seeming to second some anti-Semitic comment on X, which is Twitter, obviously. IBM pulls the ads, calls for Musk to resign. Social media paid Hitler lover, pathetic stuff. I mean, this is, I don't know what is going through Musk's mind, but, and I don't care how trendy it is to try to follow the dumb students out there who are protesting, not only to support Palestinians, but like against Israel or against Jewish people. This is just an outrageous turn. And I think, ever since this new war in the Middle East started, I've been wondering, why this change of attitude in the United States or in the Western liberal democracies opposing Israel. We'd seen some of that in the past decade, but this sort of really strident anti-Israeli, anti-Jewish sentiment is very strange. And I can only think, and even saying this, it sounds like an obvious trendy thing, but, it sounds like how we have somehow dumbed down the electorate, the people of these countries with the foolish stuff that we consume online. It's very strange because, you always think having an informed electorate is a good thing. But now that we have in this era where everyone has instant access to all sorts of media and all kinds of propaganda, how much of it is false? How many people now are willingly, for fun, for cred, to believe things that are not true, people who are not able to look at the situation in the world in a somewhat objective way anymore, or at least a sort of preponderance, a group of people, most people could see reason. But I don't know. We'll see how this plays out. This is fascinating. This is what I've been talking about for a couple weeks now. The smoke-filled room, the attitude, the idea that in both the Republican Party with Trump and the Democrats with Biden, the bigwigs behind the scenes really would like a younger, more acceptable, presentable, lucid candidate than any of those two guys. Now, here's the Washington Examiner. This is quite a right-leaning thing, so they're going to play this up to show Biden is doddering in his both personally and in his bid for a re-election. And this is the idea that perhaps the governor of California, Newsom, is being floated as a presidential candidate on the sidelines. Who knows if they could get rid of Kamala Harris? They could put Newsom in as vice president. Although I suppose many people would point to some of the disastrous policies apparently in California that have led so many people to not want to live there anymore and caused troubles in the inner city with looting and homelessness. That's under Newsom's watch for sure. Here we go to the other side of the aisle. We have again this. I quite like this new source here. I don't know how new it is. I just became aware of it a few months ago. This is Semaphore. So this is talking about how perhaps Nikki Haley, this woman here, is becoming the top leader the top person on the Republican side that could possibly replace Trump, if they could make that work. Again, the bigwigs of the party would obviously want something like that. And what's neat about Semaphore is they have this these little viewpoints, people adding context and commentary, sort of like I am as well. This is, a good insight that what seems to be happening now, if this is a correct interpretation, is the field of all these different people who are running in the Republican primaries, jostling for position. It's better to have a whole bunch of them in there because they kind of divide the vote and there's no distinct focus on the media, which seems like maybe Nikki Haley is clearing the field and becoming the one prime person who might challenge Trump. But of course, they have to have the caveat, of course, is that Trump has extraordinary numbers far above anybody else. So it's certainly no sure thing that he could be replaced. I just wanted to mention this. This is basically the same sort of story. I understand what this word means in the context. It's like getting rid of killing him, not literally killing him, but, knocking him off of, for a long time, he was seen as maybe the biggest primary challenger to Trump. But I haven't seen this word croaking used this way. How funny that the media has become this informal in the way it presents its headlines. Here's one. Anytime I have to mention RFK or I put a tag in one of my videos where I mention him, I get a lot more views. I don't know who is looking for that or looking for information about him. This is sort of a hit piece by the New York Times, certainly a left-leaning publication at this point. But also, I would say, and many people would disagree with me, it's sort of it's a newspaper that wants to keep the status quo, whether it's the middle or the left or a little to the right. And so here is a kind of a hit piece to show us how RFK Jr., who is surging as an independent candidate now, polling something like 22%, which equals like major third-party candidates like we've had in the past, like Perot in the 1990s. So here they've got to kind of take him down and show like, oh, he's a rich guy who makes lots of money by virtue of some of his causes, his anti-vax stuff. It's the same type of thing all these guys do when you get to a position, when you're a big-time senator, you're a big person in the government. You can, they're supposed to have laws that prevent people from using their influence afterwards, and I don't know where the state of those laws are right now, but they talk here about how RFK here is using his influence or maybe potential influence to make a lot of money. And I don't think he's actually held elective office at this point. But anyway, this is the sort of thing to sort of say, well, look how bad he is. He made a lot of money. And I think they would feel justified by saying this because his claims, I think they're demonstrably false claims, all this anti-vaccine stuff. Very weird stuff that some people have grabbed onto and believe very passionately. It's a strange time we're in. Public gayness banned in Tennessee town. Okay, obviously it's probably this sort of this is a kind of a clout thing. Maybe this is a right-leaning local government that just as obviously this would be ridiculous and would be overturned in the courts. It's obviously going to be challenged. I noted earlier, I try to stay away from comments on such things, but people in the comments were noting, the comments had a thing that says, we're removing any hateful comments. And other people were saying, well, this means you can't comment whether you support this. You can only say that you you are against this. So I don't know. I'm not sure that you get much really good insight in comments usually. More about the weird stuff in the House Speaker. More stuff. This crazy Santos guy, very strange. Already not interested in that. So on top of everything else here, all this weird and alarming news, we have killer monkeys right there in India. So it might take some time before they get over to other countries. Newspaper closures intensify. This is maybe I mentioned a little earlier about the informed electorate. And here we have all these areas where more and more little counties don't have their own newspapers. You know, if you go to the United States, every little town usually in the past had its own little newspaper that reported on its own things, the zoning, the variance, the school board, this sort of thing, and that's slowly going away. I know the towns I'm familiar with back in the U.S. used to have big, normal-sized newspapers that would come out every day. Now they're like really weird-sized, tiny sheets. And, of course, you would never meet any young people who are subscribers to that sort of newspaper anymore. It's sad, and yeah, we have this dynamic, well, it's in a study, dynamic poses a far-reaching crisis for our democracy. Yeah, that's, I don't know where that leads to. Sean Combs, more accusations. I hope it's not from 40 years ago like some of these are. Snoop Dogg says he's giving up weed. I think I've read this like 20 years ago, so say it ain't so, Snoop. I don't know. I'm not for any drugs. I still think all that stuff should be banned. It's no good for you. But see, I'm an old fart. I probably alcohol should be banned, although you can't really do that practically, I guess. But at least if there's marijuana in the world, I want to know Snoop Dogg is smoking it. Here's this was sort of interesting. This was the idea that, and I don't even know this news source. This is, sometimes you come across these news sources that are not really prominent, but here you have, Saudi Arabia and Russia, much to the chagrin of the United States, other major powers, a few months ago saying they wanted to push the price up to $100 a barrel. It was also thought of this guy, the MBS, the Crown Prince, who's the de facto leader of Saudi Arabia, charting a more independent course away from where everything has been in the past. And that's what we've seen in the world right now, with Russia building its new axis of power and China becoming more belligerent, perhaps, in the South China Seas. So we have different countries that typically stayed in their place. They're taking a stand. So anyway, this guy is noting that even though those two countries make up a lot of the oil supply and should be able to move the market, it's not moving at all, or hasn't moved in the way we thought it was going to. And he notes here, when the Saudis and Russia's committed to the 100 a barrel price, people saw it as a shot across the bow of the Biden administration, meaning this was going to hurt him in his re-election campaign, as it would cause prices and inflation to rise even more than it has already. They also note they believe the risk of a global recession in the next 6 months is very low. We've talked about the death cross. Some people say it's maybe high. I do know. Usually, recessions only come when everybody says they're not going to come. It's the same thing when you're leaving a recession. Once the recession starts, everybody says, well, it's going to be like this forever. This time it's different. So this is an interesting thing where the the explanation is a bit unclear eventually as what's going on, but it is a fascinating thing that Saudi Arabia and Russia have not been able to impact the oil market in the way they thought they were going to. There were some, they do mention like Angola, Nigeria, other countries coming online, pumping oil, more oil. This is a very right wing sort of outlet, or at least it likes to play up the foibles of the Democrats and the wokeness and the way things are in the world. Here's this idea, this protest group that perhaps is accused of or is being investigated of being aligned or working somehow with China, allegedly. Who knows? That would be interesting. But again, this is probably a good example. I haven't seen this article being or this concept being played up in most of the mainstream media outlets that are a little more left leaning, which is exactly what you would expect to see. So sometimes, when we say this something is right leaning or left leaning, you think, oh, one of them is lying. When the right leaning ones would lie about some issues, the left leaning ones would lie, and it's usually not that case. It's usually not the case. And you see any kind of sites that aggregate how good the truthfulness of all of these sites are, and most of them are in the high range. So it's basically what news outlets choose to cover. So some would choose to cover some things, some would not. And by their omission or inclusion, it can tell us a little about the bias. That's where the bias is, not really in just, trying to push one agenda or another, kind of spinning things. It's usually not about spin. More pro-Palestinian, anti-Israel. Here's a great headline. Bethlehem cancels Christmas. There we are, back to the Mail Online again. Americans praise bin Laden in viral TikTok videos. I was asked, of course, this is Jerusalem Post, obviously a very pro-Israeli newspaper. They would want to raise the alarm that this stuff is happening in the Western democracies. I did the other day just wonder, I wonder what the progressive people in these liberal democracies and our college students, what would they do if 9/11 had happened today? Would they be saying something like this, praising bin Laden? Perhaps they would. I don't know. It's a little bit about the Chinese U.S. summit. Here we have Supreme Court refuses to reinstate Florida's anti-drag show law. A lot of right-wing laws or more conservative laws were instituted. DeSantis, one of the primary challengers to Biden, is the governor there, and he hoped to build on this sort of anti-wokeness idea to kind of go back a little bit to something more conservative. It's not being, but some of these laws have been knocked back. I'm cool. I know who this is. This is Bianca Del Rio, very humorous person. See, I'm hip. I know some modern people. This is these crazy Shapiro and Owens sniping at each other. I don't know about if I would want to be associated with media sites that are just certainly a spin. Here we have ones that spin things that have a certain agenda, either on the right or the left. I mean, would you want to be part of Fox? Would you want to be part of MSNBC? And then we have these guys who are part of, was it Daily Wire? I just don't know. I think it behooves us to try to sensibly look at the news and give it some context rather than always, stridently, yell to our own supporters for cred, I guess. this is his dumb thing, Barbara Streisand. I love Barbara Streisand, but the dumb thing is all these celebrities coming out. They did that way back with George W. Bush saying we're going to move to Canada. It's weird public performative stuff that they're doing. I'm not sure, and I'm not sure if there's any cases of people who actually went through with leaving the country for good because it was such a terrible thing that the other party would win. Tennessee teacher charged in paddling student. When I was in middle school, me and this other guy, we had something, instead of a study hall, we got to be in the guidance counselor's office, and it was in the paddling period of school. So it was that period where everyone would get taken to paddle. So I got to, they would give me the little slip and I would go and I would bring the kids to be paddled. And it was great. We sat right outside the door. It was hilarious. They just kids always trying not to cry. And I thought, what you should do is before they even start to paddle you, you'd scream and shout. And they would take the kids' pants down, just the underwear. I didn't see it, but this was a procedure that everybody knew about. And I was also in there in other times when the parents came in. And of course, this was in America a long time ago, but it was still the age of divorce. So like everybody was divorced. So every kid was only being raised by sort of like an absent mother who had to work all day. So the kids were all wild. So this kind of hotsy-totsy single mother coming in, and she's kind of flirting with the guidance counselor. I guess they're just standing there talking, but they were always saying like, what did that little brat do this time? Nobody ever was upset by the teachers or the guidance counselor paddling misbehaving little brats. So that's something else. I didn't look to see if maybe he like almost really hurt this kid, or you're just not allowed to do it. But times sure changed fast, and people would say this is a generational thing. Generation X people like me who maybe had an experience of too much freedom. When we had kids, we were too strict. We were helicopter parents. We hovered over the kids and we made them all little princes and princesses, and we won't let them get paddled in the way our generation was. But I don't know. I think we may be a little the worse for that change. Ambulance on the way. Most of the time you should just get in the car and get yourself to the hospital. Can't do much in the ambulance anyway. And I don't know why I loved this report. You see these reporters that are standing at the sidelines and trying to say something from the coach of what he's going to improve. After the halftime, she just made something up that was generalized. I always thought if I was a coach and I was in the middle of that, I don't want some young woman coming in and trying to interview me at halftime when I'm down, 0-21. I would just be cussing everybody out. So she made up some stuff. So I think that's hilarious. This TMZ, if you don't know it, if you're interested in celebrities dying, they always have the first news and everybody references them. The first time I really became aware of them was way back, I guess it would be 2009 when Michael Jackson died, and they had all the first reports on someone dying. So if you're interested to hear about if someone's dying and what's going on in Hollywood, you get over to TMZ and they have the report and they keep it updated. So here's the talking about, they got tipped off early on Matthew Perry's death. They have a real close ties to law enforcement. So some people don't like that. Habit of paying sources gets new scrutiny. Anyway, that's TMZ.com. I know it has a stupid reputation. It's just a gossipy, silly site afterwards. But for breaking news of people dying who are famous, you might be interested in, they're the best. Airbnb, who cares? So Okay, that was some interesting news today. A lot of turmoil and strange things happening in the world. And there's a lot of things that are going to sort itself out as we get into the primaries in the United States and we see who's really going to be running for president. This is my novel, There Are Still Unknown Places. It's a story of people living in a giant concrete city that's becoming more modern by the day, but still overlaid with an amazing history. And it's about their hopes, their dreams, their fears, and their internal struggles, and all of our desires to go out to unknown places while searching for ourselves. It's on Amazon and Kindle. You can buy it there. And I was doing this every day. I keep forgetting. This is my pack of cards. Might be of use to somebody. I don't know who. Art of War card. So on every card, every playing card, we got something. Okay, well, this is nothing. This is the explanation of the pack. So I'll put this away. Take one off the top, and let's see what our advice is coming to us from Chinese thinkers from a long time ago. Here we have, leave behind an empty shell. I don't really know. Hide your intentions by appearing to maintain the status quo. The basis of that is the status quo does not draw added attention. So that's not bad. That's right. You don't always want to raise your profile for no good reason. So anyway, I wish somebody would raise my profile and subscribe to my site. Please subscribe or like it, or even comment if there's anything to comment on. So until next time, bye-bye.